So there are smaller nuclear plants nowadays which aren't so horrifically expensive nor take decades to build. So how do we get more sense, how do we get more rigour in that whole debate? So Hugh, you raised analysis, so you get first crack at this one.
Sensible debate. Well, I said I had nightmares about it, so...
you should join me on the IA board sometimes,
The nuclear one, certainly, it's about the only time that I can really get my wife extremely angry with me. But nuclear, I think, if Australia had gone strong 30 or 40 years ago, yes, and I would definitely be filled with anxiety if Australia stopped exporting its uranium. I think the export of Australian uranium to China and India is one of the most important things to stopping climate change. And if you look at the data, many of you probably have, the deaths per unit of power generation from nuclear to coal is 10 to 100 times kills as many more people than nuclear. So, but for some reason, getting back to the rational decision making, Australians were convinced, when we were young, around 15, well, when I was 15 or 20 years old, that nuclear was the devil. And I think that at the heart of most Australians, they still feel that. And so in some senses, I just don't bother putting it back on the table unless I'm really wanting to piss my wife off. Because it's just not, let's be honest, we could talk about it all night. I've done cost-benefit analysis. There's a great paper by one of my colleagues, Barry Brook, about all the benefits of nuclear. And he's a conservation scientist and an environmentalist. Maybe some of these small-scale devices will be useful, but I don't think Australia's going to go into large-scale nuclear. If we had 40 years ago and provided 20% of our base load for nuclear, I think we'd be in a much better position, like France and Germany, to meet these very rapid decarbonisation projections that they can do.
So I think there might be a possibility of us agreeing on nuclear here. I think Hugh's wrong. I think that there is a substantial number of Australians who are actually in favour of it. I think it's just slightly less than 50%. I did a poll myself. I have an online panel that I use, and it was about 47% on that, which I'd adjusted for voting preference. It's a bit complicated as to how I do it, and it's a model. So it's not going to be completely right, but it dovetailed in with other surveys that when I was looking at and saying, is this a reasonable result, they'd come to similar figures. I can send you the links to that if you're interested. And one of the points I make to people is that last year about 2% of Queensland's electricity for about 2 weeks was generated by nuclear power. And people look at me and I point out that the Ronald Reagan was birthed down in Hamilton. It's got 2 75 megawatt nuclear power generators on it. No one blinked an eyelid. And that's the kind of small modular reactors that Julianne was talking about. They're basically taking that technology, building a nuclear reactor in a factory so you can keep the costs down. One of the big problems with nuclear is regulatory time periods, etc. It's one of the reasons the cost is as high as it is. With these, with a standard format, you can probably get around that.